You want me to start? Good morning. I'm Emma. I'm Christian's older sister. And this morning I'm going to show you how to make a recipe from this cookbook, which I authored. Let's take a fork in it. I'm going to be doing a recipe for frittata, which you may start to see on menus for like fancy restaurants. It's kind of like one of those older traditional foods that they're trying to make modern and chic and cool, whatever. But it's very basic, and it's just potatoes and eggs. But it's very good. It's one of my favorites. Something Nani always used to make for me. I'd always ask her to make it for me, and she would, of course. It's also one of the first things I learned how to cook on my own, and it was easy enough that I could cook on my own. So that's what I'm going to show you today. Let's get started. So far, already prepared our potatoes. Two different kinds of potatoes because we didn't have all of the one kind. We have regular yellow potatoes and then sweet potatoes. It's a combination that works pretty well together. You don't have to do regular and sweet potatoes. I prefer all regular potatoes. That's just me. I prefer the saltier, more savory flavor. Sweet potatoes, of course, add a little sweetness. Not my thing, but it'll work for this morning. Can we keep going? So these potatoes, you can see, are very small. These are your finger-length potatoes. But you can use any sort of white potato. I usually use the smaller ones that are about that big, white potatoes. And the ratio is 1 egg for 1 potato. So here we have about 4 potatoes. And if you want, you can figure if you're making it for a large group, 1 potato per person. So this will be 4 potatoes. And so I'm going to crack 4 eggs into the bowl. Now, what you might want to do before you crack the eggs is start your pan with some oil. I'm going to use some vegetable oil today because it heats to a higher temperature before smoking, so it does not doesn't really make the potatoes soggy. It gives them a nice crisp. So I'm going to go ahead and add some oil to the pan. Before I even do that, I'm going to add some Pam to the pan because it makes it easier to clean once you're all done. Never spray Pam over an open flame. I learned that you shouldn't do that, so don't do that. Put the Pam on the pan, then turn the flame on. You're going to want to keep this at about a medium heat so that the oil doesn't get too hot, but it's hot enough to crisp your potatoes. About a medium. I'm going to add, let's see, just enough oil to give the bottom of the pan maybe just like a quarter, not less than that, 1/8 of an inch deep. Not a little bit more than just coating the pan does the trick. I guess you could say this is maybe about 2 tablespoons and it's all done. The trick is you want to do enough oil so that you can fry the potatoes. There's still just a coating of oil in the bottom of the pan so that the eggs don't stick. It's tricky. It took me a while. But I think that I might have gotten it correct today. Alright, as that's heating up, you want your potatoes to be nice and sliced, peeled, as dry as can be. So I'm going to get a paper towel. And I'm going to dry them. Okay, because we all know that oil and water and heat don't go well together. So you want them as dry as possible. As dry as you can get them. Okay? Okay. Alright, now for the eggs. Back to the eggs here. I've got 4 potatoes. I'm going to crack 4 eggs. You can do it if you prefer to have more egg to potato, add another egg. Or if you prefer less egg to potato, do one less egg. It's up to you. Okay? Alright. That's 1. 2. This was something Nani always let me do when I'd help her make it in the kitchen. She'd always, when I was old enough, she'd let me crack the eggs. That's why I'm so good at it. Oh, there goes the shell. Never mind. Give me 1 second. Got the shell. So that's 3, 4. Now you're not going to need the eggs until all of the potatoes are done frying, which is usually takes about 10 minutes. The thinner you can slice the potatoes, the better, because they get cooked faster and they get a little bit more crispy. So I'm also going to add a little salt and pepper to the eggs. Put the potatoes in the pan on hot oil. Again, be very careful. If the potatoes aren't completely dry, it's going to make a loud noise and you might get a little splatter, so be careful. Again, the oil in the pan, I'm going to lower this heat a little bit. You don't want them to burn. You want it to be just a little bit more oil than just coating the pan, okay? Okay, here, that's ready. Got my potatoes. Sweet potatoes in first. Okay, here come the potatoes. Drop them in, get your hands out of there. Okay, and then I'm going to actually let the sweet potatoes get going a little bit first. They take a little bit longer to cook. Try and spread them out in the pan so they don't get all crowded. And then a little bit of salt. Just a little. Okay, these are going to take a little while to cook. One thing I also remember whenever I started to help Nani cook is she was very fussy about your hair. And she wasn't fussy about many things, but you know, girls that have long hair, she was always fussy. Don't touch your hair in the kitchen. Pull your hair back. Don't shake your head. Don't touch your hair in the kitchen. So I have my hair pulled back so that, you know, I'm doing everything right for her. So, just a side note, don't touch your hair in the kitchen. Make sure you have your hair pulled back. I never thought it was such a big deal, but thinking back, yeah, kind of is. Alright. I'm going to put the other potatoes in as these start to soften a little bit. Okay, and keep them moving so that they don't start to burn. Whenever I first started making this on my own, I would have potatoes that were like burnt to a crisp, like completely charred, and then I'd have very mushy, still barely cooked ones. So try and keep them moving as much as you can to avoid that. Best frittata has nice crispy potatoes that aren't burnt. Still a little soft, but have a crisp on them. Okay? You can see now our potatoes are starting to crisp a little bit, which is good. Again, you want to keep them moving and keep them from staying on the bottom of the pan for too long so that they all kind of evenly cook. We're just about that point where we can add the eggs. A couple of these little ones are still needing to get a little crispy, but they're still looking good. So I'm using this nice, fancy, kind of like a spatula. Works really well. But my Nani never had this kind of kitchenware. You should always have wooden utensils mostly, or a spatula. Spatula works well, or if you have, I don't see one, tongs work, or I don't see one, but a flat sort of like fish turner works well for this as well. Okay, so here we have some of those potatoes, whoops, flying out of the pan, and they are getting a little bit dark, so I'm going to lower the heat down to low. Okay, and they're mostly all nice and crisp, looking good. So you can see here, I added just a little bit too much oil because you still see it kind of puddle up there. So I'm going to dump a little bit of that out because you don't want this like super greasy. You want it just enough oil in the bottom of the pan so that the eggs aren't going to stick. So I'm going to take this over to the sink, dump a little bit of it out. Okay. And again, I turn the heat down. Whoops. I'm going to shut up completely. Turn it back down to about medium low. So you don't want those eggs to get so cooked so quickly that they stick. Okay? So you want to, this is the next important part, is evenly spreading out your potatoes before you add your eggs. Very, very important part. So I'm trying to make a good ratio here of regular potatoes, sweet potatoes. Spreading them out in a nice even layer. You get a nice last little crisp on them. And then we're ready for the eggs. So I've already cracked and scrambled the eggs. We're ready. Give it a last little whirl. And there we go. I'm going to pour it around as evenly as you can. And you can see the eggs really just on the bottom start to cook. So I'm going to turn it down just a hair. And then you just want to kind of move it a little bit. Get that egg distributed as evenly as you can. Let it cook a little bit. Kind of like the way you cook scrambled eggs. Okay. Give it a minute. And then here's the fun part. Nani would always flip it. She's really good at flipping it in the pan. She'd kind of like get it off to the side and then she'd flip it right back into the pan. I have never done that successfully. Ever. Once. And I've tried many times and it's never worked for me. So, rather than try and do that today, the other way, if you still want to see it, it's so nice and pretty if you can flip it. It all stays in one piece. And it looks really nice. Whenever I've tried to flip it, it comes all apart and it comes into a million pieces and doesn't look very nice. So, today we're going to turn on the broiler in the oven. And then you just put it under the broiler for maybe a minute. Just to get the top egg cooked. Okay? Just about ready. Okay? And into the broiler it goes. And under the broiler. Turn your oven off or turn your stove off. Give it about a minute. And then we're done. Okay? Shutting the broiler off. It's all finished. I'm going to pull it out and it's nice and cooked on the top. You see those eggs are nice and cooked. Don't want to leave it in much longer than that because then you'll kind of start to dry it out. Edges are nice and crisp. Potatoes are cooked. And there's your frittata. Okay? Nice and loose. Okay? Let me get my serving tray here. Voila! Beautiful frittata. If you want to add a little more salt and pepper to the top, you can, but I'll just let you look at that. Beautiful. When you serve it, you slice it into slices. This one you'll probably get 8 small slices out of it, and it'll be delicious for breakfast. Served with like fruit salad or toast. Anything. It's really, really filling and delicious.